Prevention Week is a long-standing tradition here in San Angelo ISD, and a big part of the reason why we do this is to be proactive with our kids about fire safety. It's obviously a great concern for the overall safety of our kids, and so we want them to have a lot of knowledge ahead of time in order to prevent incidents from happening. But in the event that something were to happen, like they were involved in a fire in a building, they would know what to do. Also, so that way they're aware of the procedures that firefighters go through when they're handling something like this, like a fire at a building. So they're not scared of the firefighter, so they know this is somebody that's here to help, and it's somebody that's gonna help them get out of whatever the dangerous situation that they're in.
Always have two ways out of each and every room. Have an escape plan to where once you get out of the house, make sure that you have a meeting place. We speak about matches and lighters and candles. Basically, we just want to prepare them for if something were to happen at home, that they would know what to do and be better prepared and hopefully panic a little bit less.
Organized. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our City Council meeting here on February 18th, 2020. We will call this meeting to order. It is 8:30 a.m. And with that, we are going to start with our chaplain prayer. So would Ed Lopez please come forward to do the prayer for us today?
Good morning. Let's go to the Lord in prayer. Heavenly Father, Lord, we come before you on this Tuesday morning to thank you, Lord, for the privilege that we have to be able to wake up and serve your kingdom one more day. We thank you for your blessings. We thank you, Lord, for the privilege that we have, but also, Lord, to be able to live in such a fine city as San Angelo. Father, now we ask you that you be with our mayor and city council staff. Lord, that you'll give them, Father God, the wisdom from above, discernment to be able to make the best decisions that will impact the citizens of San Angelo. We ask you, Father God, again, Lord, that you'll place your hedge of protection around our city and keep it safe, Father God. And Lord, right now, we ask you now, Lord, that you just continue to bring blessings to each and every citizen of our fine city. We thank you, Lord, for all your love. We thank you, Lord, for all you do for us. And now, Lord, help us as we serve your kingdom. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Today, we are privileged to have the Miles 4th, 5th, and 6th grade student council members. So would you come forward and help lead us in prayer? Come. I do this every time, just checking to see if you're paying attention. Okay, we're going to do the pledge. No wonder you didn't move. Now you can move. Come on. We're going to have a picture, so let's stay up here. In fact, why don't we come all back over here and turn around like that. And we also want to say that one of the gentlemen from this group, father works for us in the traffic department, so we want to say thank you for allowing your son to come forward and be with us today. Thank you.
So much red out there, I don't know.
And the mayor got the memo.
Which one? Hohensee.
Jackson.
You'll know who to blame, right? People up here. Thank you for being here today.
Me.
This is a really rare occasion. We have no proclamations today, so with that, we will move into public comment. At public comment, issues or concerns not on the regular agenda may be raised by the public at this time. Citizens should speak from the podium, address all comments to the dais, begin by stating their name and address or single-member district, and limit remarks to less than 3 minutes. Do we have anyone here today who would like to offer public comment? With none, we will move on to our consent agenda. I'm going to start with Billy. Are there any items you'd like to pull, Billy?
I'd like to pull item J.
Okay. Lane? Lucy? I also wanted to pull J, so that's good. And then I would like to pull L. Harry?
Nothing.
Tommy? Tom?
I'm good.
Tommy? All right, with that, May I have a motion to approve all of the consent agenda with the exception of items J and L?
So moved.
So moved by Lane, seconded by Billy. Any public comment? With no public comment, we will take a vote. All in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
With none opposed, motion passes. We will start with item J, consider resolution authorizing the Solid Waste Department to provide funding for future Keep San Angelo Beautiful KSAB cleanup events. Jeremy, you're on.
Actually,
You're not on.
I'm going to speak for Jeremy this morning. He's out managing and making sure everything's going smoothly out there. So,
Great.
this is a item before you to accept the funding for the newly formed KSAB division. It's kind of some seed money to get going on some projects and some events that they have. The Solid Waste Fund is willing to do that. It sees the benefit of that, so we're willing to put forth about that $50,000 toward KSAB to help fund an event, a cleanup event for the city. So
And what cleanup event is that?
I'm going to let Bob Solis speak to you about that. He's managing the KSAB division, so I'll let him speak to that.
And when you do that, also please explain to us the Solid Waste Department funds, how much is there, the ability to use it for what level? I mean, keep us informed here on what this fund is about.
This project that we're proposing is hazardous material cleanup. We're going to contract out a company to come in and so citizens can dispose of some of the household hazardous material. We haven't done that in a long time, and I think it's a good kickoff for KSAB.
Billy,
What kind of hazardous materials, Bob?
Things like paint, corrosive material that you have around the house, those kind of things. It won't be tires, though. That's one thing we're not going to accept. But there will be a slew of items that we will be able to dispose of.
Okay.
So-
And I noticed in the background information that it said something about community projects, as though there was more than one.
Well-
Is that going to be the only one for this year, or will there potentially be others?
We're going to try to do quarterly community cleanup events. This is, like I said, the first kickoff. We're actually have we're going to partner with the county, and they're in fact submitting an application for a grant. So some of this $50,000 may be used for the first project, and whatever's left over, we'll push it to the next project. We're not sure what it's going to be. We have an executive director we just hired. In fact, she comes on today, and we're going to meet and we'll discuss future projects with the new executive director.
All right. And I am interested in the answer to the mayor's question regarding the partnership between solid waste as well as Keep San Angelo Beautiful.
Okay, well, I will let, I'll turn it back over to,
and may I ask, go ahead, Lucy.
Bob, when was this supposed to take place, this cleanup, do you know?
details to be determined, but I think we're going to try to make it over at the Coliseum parking lot. We'll have, like I said, we'll have a contractor taking care of all that, because there's some very unique requirements that has to be met before we can do those kind of things. So we're going to let them handle it.
Okay, but you don't have a date yet.
Oh, actually, it's going to be, we actually do have a tentative date. It's going to be the last Saturday of April, which happens to be which happens to be our Blitz Day as well, but that's okay. We have enough board members that can handle it.
And what have we done in the past of picking up paint and all these things? So I mean, obviously, people have had a paint issue before, and how have we dealt with it, and why is it this time we're doing this?
That's correct, Mayor. In the past, Safe Recycling, when it was up and functioning, they have hosted 2 household hazardous waste events in the past. Like Bob mentioned, it's been a couple of years since they've hosted one. And in those 2 events, the Solid Waste Fund has also contributed $50,000 to help fund that. It is not a cheap program, but the problem is there's no other way to dispose of household hazardous waste in the whether in our landfill or any other, commercial business or anything like that, that households can go and citizens can go and dispose of those hazardous materials. So a household hazardous waste event is very beneficial, and that's why we can tie it into the solid waste fund. In fact, in the solid waste contract, there is a specific mention of some coordination between us and Republic and whomever to host a household hazardous waste event. So it is definitely something that falls in line with solid waste and the environmental impact that department oversees, and so there's that tie-in between them. And it is a budgeted line item. Like I said, we've already hosted our funds to SAFE for 2 years now, so we put that into the budget on the hopes that something like this can occur and be coordinated.
So the funds we're talking about are funds that traditionally would have been the SAFE funds, or is this in addition to the SAFE funds?
No, ma'am. Since Safe Recycling is no longer operating and so they're not hosting that event, this is the money we would have contributed had they hosted an event.
Mm-hmm.
We're just pulling it over to KSAB to
All right,
manage
and
that operation.
How much money is in this, quote, fund?
So the solid waste fund in of itself is I can't speak to the exact number right now off the top of my head, but we do have a fund balance in there, but it is for long-term permitting and long-term costs in that. But like I said, this $50,000 is budgeted in an expense line item every year. So.
Okay. Tina, did you want to offer something to this conversation?
Yes, ma'am. Tina Darsky, Director of Finance. I was just going to let you know that the budgeted ending fund balance in the solid waste fund is $3.8 million, just over.
Thank you. Do I have further questions from council on this item J?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Patrick, will
Tommy.
the citizens need to take their hazardous materials, if we're hosting it at the Coliseum, will they need to take their materials there, or will there be any pickup by Republic?
No, it will definitely be a drop-off by the citizens. They've got to record information of the origination of that product and everything like that.
Okay.
So it will definitely need to be delivered to the site of the event
Okay.
on that day.
Thank you.
Further questions on this item? If not, Billy, would you like to make a motion to approve item J?
Yes, I move to approve item J on the consent agenda. Thank you.
And a second by Lucy. Any public comment? With no public comment, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. Motion passes. Item L, consider approving tax increment reinvestment and incentive funding for one private project in the North Tiers area for the property located at 124 West 4th Street, totaling $70,197, and 7 private projects in the South Tiers area for the properties located at 19 West Beauregard, 40 West Tewig, 109 North Chadbourn, 136 East Concho Avenue, 226 South Abe, 322 North Chadbourn, and 909 West Beauregard, totaling $172,582 and 94 cents. I don't really have any questions. I just like us to go through and publicly say what these businesses are. We have their addresses, but I think the public needs to know where these dollars are being spent on which projects. So, John, if you would please identify the projects.
Well, and I may defer to Shannon on some of that. She has the details on each of the projects in terms of the business that's located at each of these. Some of them are just improving the facades of buildings that may not have a business located in them. But I think with that, I'll ask Shannon to give the details on each of those.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So the property at 124 West 4th Street is twofold Journey Properties. 19 West Beauregard is Box Hangar 210, which is a engineering consulting firm. 40 West Tewig is the Spur Building. 109 North Chadbourn is Concho Venue. 136 East Concho is San Angelo Autism Center. 226 South Abe is Reyna's Tacos. Uh, 322 is North Chadbourn is Burlap and Paisley, and 909 West Beauregard is Concho Self Storage.
Thank you very much. Do I have any questions or comments from anybody else? Billy?
I have a question. Shannon, within the TIERS program, I had previously been under the understanding that it was for renovation and rehab. But the 909 West Beauregard, that is a new building going up. Is that correct?
Correct, and it can include new construction, as long as the incentives that they're applying for have not started work. And in this particular case, the incentives that they're applying for, they have delayed certain parts of that project in anticipation of receiving TIERS funding.
Okay, all right, so it can apply to new construction?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right.
It's just that most of the historic district, which TIERS was really created to support the historic district, there's very few new developments, usually reinvestment and reconstruction. The other question I have is on 136 East Concho Avenue. Typically in the past, TIERS board did not approve money for signage.
Correct.
And I think this is for signage, so I was just asking that question.
For 136 East Concho, that's actually for landscaping.
For landscaping?
Yes, ma'am.
That's what I need to know.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Do I have any other questions or comments from anyone on council? Tom?
Right, so none of these are nonprofits, right?
Correct.
It can't be.
Right, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Any other comments? With none, may I have a motion for approval? Lane moves to approve.
Second.
Second by Tommy. Any public comment? With no public comment, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion approved. We are now through with the consent agenda. We will move into our regular agenda. Comments regarding items on the regular agenda may be made by the public when each item is discussed as outlined above. Applicants, proponents, and appellants are accepted from the time limit above and instead must limit their remarks to less than 5 minutes. So item A is public hearing on proposed developments and consideration of a resolution of general support for a low-income housing tax credit project known as Walnut Trails, located at the northwest corner of Houston Hart Expressway and Northwest Drive by Trinity Housing Development Texas, LLC, to construct affordable housing apartments in San Angelo. Bob, you're on.
Good morning. Again, we are here for a approval of a resolution of support for Walnut Trails. It is one of our affordable housing tax credit projects. We did hold a public meeting in January, and we did have some people show up with positive comments. And we have Mr. Michael Fogel here from Trinity Housing Development, LLC, to give a presentation.
Michael, welcome. Glad to have you back.
Thank you. Thanks, Bob.
When you're talking about this development as well, Michael, would you also just update everybody on the project you've completed on Rio Concho Drive?
Absolutely, and we can start there. I'll kind of, I'll maybe keep this a little bit shorter than usual or in past times, but that said, stop me at any time with questions, and of course at the end we can dive into further details on anything and everything as it comes up. Okay, so not off to a quicker start than usual.
It's going now.
It's going, it's just,
Oh, that's what you call user error on my part. So these are some of our projects in Texas and elsewhere here in Texas. But as you were saying, Mayor, we recently finished construction of a tax credit development similar to what we're proposing and here to talk about today. Although in this case it was a senior property. The property that we're proposing today is family or general population, which really just means non-age restricted. It doesn't mean seniors can't live there. It means there is no age restriction.
it's just an income restriction.
Correct, and that's tied to the affordable housing tax credit funding, which finances these projects. So anyways, just really across the street or down the block from here at 625 Rio Concho is a 48-unit affordable senior housing property that we had allocated in the 2017 housing tax credit cycle and then finished construction on late fall of last year. Started moving people in the fall and are now fully leased up and running. So this is 48 duplex units on a pretty large site. So just kind of depending on the site, the neighborhood, the submarket, we do anything, from duplexes to fourplexes. And I misspoke. This isn't duplexes, but it's single story. Duplexes to fourplexes to a 3-story kind of what I call hotel style building and a few things in between. So excited how this project turned out. It was a difficult site. That site's never been developed. So, we're happy to have been able to come in, and it took a lot of dirt work and a few other things, but, delivered on time and on budget, so.
Repeat that, on time and on budget.
Correct.
Okay, good.
We used some of the contingency in that budget, but didn't go over that part. And so since that's kind of a single-story product, and over on the new site that I'm here to talk about today is a 3-story building. Here's just some examples of some 3-story buildings we've built in the last 3 years. This is Peakview Trails, which is actually in Colorado. Forest trails with some nice stonework on all these duplexes, and these are duplexes with garages. And that's just a historic middle school that we renovated into. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, this is a historic building, which is not really what we're looking at today. As far as resident qualifications, here's the chart of the resident qualifications for 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms. So rents are determined by a matrix of bedroom size and income. There are some 30% AMI units. Most are 50 and 60%. Most are actually 60%. So anyone earning up to that number can live in these properties. So for like a 3-person household, that could be, and oftentimes is, a single parent with 2 children. And so the maximum income cutoff for that is $35,000. And so on these units, here's the rents. They, kind of looking at the 50 and 60%, that's $609 to $1,000. And market rents, for example, the Boulevard apartments, which are pretty close to this unit, those start at $1,000. So it does provide, high quality yet affordable housing for people that meet these income requirements.
Those numbers relative to rent and number of persons fits in very much to the targeted affordable housing study that we've done, meaning those are the holes that exist in this city in terms of income and price for rent. So that fills a major void that we have in this city.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I appreciate you pointing that out. It's good timing with that study coming out, and I know a lot of effort and focus has been placed on that. So, kind of happy to be able to present this on the cusp of that. And as far as, so I guess this is the question everyone wants to know. Where is this? This property is on the west side of the expressway, kind of in the southwest quadrant of the city. And here's a little bit more detail. So you've got Furniture Row is right over there, and then there's some apartments to the north that were built a few years ago. And then,
they're all market rate, those apartments that are already there.
Yes, correct. Those are market rate. And then there's still, a fair amount of vacant land that's, will be developed in the future. And so it's a good location as far as being in a desirable area as far as commercial services, at the same time without being in, abutting a single-family neighborhood either. And I do think it's important to, spread affordable developments out throughout the city and not concentrate them in a certain area. So, we hope to help, accomplish that with this location.
Why did you choose to do a 3-story building versus doing some of the cottage-like, duplex-like, or 2-story that you showed some pictures of?
Sure. So the single story we do for senior, you would either do single story or 3-story with an elevator. For non-senior, just like those apartments across the street, frankly, it's less expensive to do a 2 or 3-story building as opposed to kind of a single story spread out. So I mean that's the driving factor, behind a lot of that. Just making it feasible, making a project that works, so we can come here, present it, and then follow through and build it at the end of the day. Going in a little bit further, that's just some detail on the location. It's a 4-acre site. So we would have had to have, purchased 8 acres in order to achieve the same number of units on a kind of a single story type product. And this is the site plan. So the entrance is off Northwest Drive, which is good because it allows easy ingress and egress, without having to put in a curb cut directly on the frontage road. And then, so there's 2 buildings, and then at the entry is a community building, which has a leasing office, a fitness center, computer lab / library, a gathering area. We'll have some resident programming. There's also a commercial kitchen there, a laundry facility, and then there's a mail room, and there's also tenant package lockers. So when Amazon packages or any packages come, tenants get a text message and then can go and open it.
We don't allow Amazon to deliver in the city of San Angelo.
When Walmart delivers via UPS. And so that.
Don't tell my wife.
Local sales tax dollars count.
Right. I was just kidding.
What's important is the playground there. I think that's an important element that adds to this, having a playground, park-like area for the residents.
Absolutely, and we're also doing sport courts as well, because we found they oftentimes get more use and kind of a wider age range of use in addition to the playground. So that's the general gist of it. I'm here today in order to obtain the funding for these tax credit developments. Usually need what's called a resolution of support from City Council, which is a symbolic level of support. And then in addition to that, there's a $500 kind of symbolic contribution from the city as well, which we get in the form of a letter. So that would be the other thing. The property is zoned general commercial. So we've applied for a multifamily conditional use permit. So we'll be back to get that conditional use over the next few months. That said, I don't, we have to go through the steps, but I don't anticipate any issues with that.
I know that generally these tax credits are very competitive, meaning in a certain territory out here, of which we're included in that territory. Other people could be applying for these, so even with our support, you might not get it because somebody else might get it. But do you know if other cities and other developers are applying for these same tax credits?
That's right. So it is competitive, and so while technically you don't need the resolution of support to submit an application, effectively 9 times out of 10 you need it because you get points for it. Without those points, you won't be competitive. This year, we're fortunate to be the only ones here in San Angelo. There was another development submitted in Midland initially, and I actually submitted something in Midland, but this was always the priority. So I'm not doing anything in Midland, and you never know till it's over. But I think the other Midland development is not moving forward either. So that just leaves us.
Do I have questions from council for Michael?
I don't have any questions, Mayor, but I did drive by the property, and as Michael said, it seems like it would actually be ideal for this type of development. So if there are no questions, I would like to make a motion that we go forward with the resolution for them to add to their application for these tax credits.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
A second by Lane. Do we have public comment at this point? Please come forward. And if you will, speak your name and tell us where you live.
My name is Steve Eustace, and you always want to hear from neighbors on these type of projects, and I'm here in support of this. Full disclosure, I'm part owner of the property that Michael's buying, but more importantly, our ownership is all the contiguous property to this. We would not be selling this to Michael's group if we didn't think it would enhance the remainder of our property, and so we're fully in support of this. and we think it's a great place in the west-southwest side of San Angelo for tax credits, and I don't think you'll have any opposition from any neighbors. Thanks.
Thank you, Steve. Further public comment?
Dermot Campbell, 909 Caddo Street. Just more of a question.
Sure.
With this being tax credits and all that, does this scope of work fall under the Davis-Bacon Act, the prevailing wage? And if it does, will that prevailing wage act be enforced then on the construction?
Okay, so you mean relative to what they're paying in, construction workers in building it? Is that your question, or is it about the question about those people who will apply to live in this?
No, the actual construction.
Okay. I don't have the answer, Michael. I don't know that you might have the answer, but let's see if we can address that challenge.
I don't recall, so I hate to misspeak.
Mayor, if I could.
Yes, Michael, please.
The specialized funding is provided through the state, and so any oversight for the requirements associated, the strings attached to the funding would be administered by the state.
Okay.
The local development rules would still apply, but they don't speak to Davis-Bacon.
Okay.
Yeah, if we used a HUD loan, we would be subject to Davis-Bacon. We're not anticipating a HUD loan, so I can't say definitively.
So your question would be better at the official who would be associated with the tax credit program.
Well, yeah, and we'll know when we put final construction numbers together. I'm just not there yet.
Well, I was trying to help this citizen get his answer.
Any further public comment?
Mayor and Council, it's nice
Good
to be
morning.
back with you again. Justin McDonald, President of the McDonald Companies. We actually own and manage the complex that's across the street from this proposal. And my only public comment would be that we would really like to encourage Mr. Fogel and his company to consider going back to 2 stories on this. You heard on our proposed property zoning case on the other side of town a few weeks ago, people really prefer 2 stories in an area. Our property is all 2 stories, contrary to what Mr. Fogel said, and I think that's more fitting of what the area is. We own the property that surrounds our apartment complex as well, and 2-story was always in our plans there as well. So we'll be happy to make those comments when he comes back for his CUP, but that's just something I'd like to ask them to consider.
Maybe Steve Eustace can find a better value on the land, which will allow them to expand, and then they can do 2-story. Steve? Oh, no comment. Okay. All right, with that, there's a motion and a second. And any further public comment? With none, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. None opposed. Motion passes 7-0. Item B, consider authorizing applicant Spring Creek Marina to hold a special event at Lake Nasworthy, quote, Live 80, permitting specified activities, imposing requirements on applicant, and granting variances relating to rules and regulations of ordinances. Carl, you're on.
Good morning, Council. A few weeks ago, we received an application for a special event at Spring Creek Park, a concert. This is for Saturday, April 11, from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. It is Easter weekend. The newly approved amendment to the Spring Creek Amendment, the Marina Amendment, states, in no event shall the leased premises be utilized to host concerts or similar events requiring staging, amplified sound systems, etc., unless otherwise authorized by City Council. Therefore, staff cannot approve this special event application. It must come to City Council for consideration. The applicant, Mr. Ray Broadway, is here to answer any questions about the event, and we also have members from the police department officers here to answer any questions you may have.
Did we invite any of the Lake Nasworthy homeowners to be here as well?
We did.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Tommy, this is in your district, so I want perhaps you to lead the conversation here on this item, if you would.
Okay. I do have several comments just for the council's benefit. I did go back and look at the video of the meeting in which we talked about this. It was November the 20th. And the entire agenda item took 22 to 23 minutes. And half of that time we spent talking about staging and music out there. Also, just this morning was able to locate, we received an email. There was a sound test that was performed out there sometime mid-December of 2018. And in this, let me read this portion to you. It says, and this is in all caps, without exception, loud noise was heard at every single location we assessed from. I could hear music from every location I assessed with my vehicle running and windows up. And one officer was over on Mary E. Lee Beach, which is pretty much across the lake on the west side from this, and said he could hear the music with his vehicle running and windows up from the Mary E. Lee Beach. The last statement in this email is, I foresee issues arising immediately if there is any type of concert held on that property. So let me set that up. But I do want to hear from Mr. Broadway several things. What type of music is this specific event going to be?
This one is just rock and pop from the 80s. No heavy metal, nothing like that.
Okay. And how many are you talking one band, multiple bands? And
Please talk into the microphone, if you will, and you might go ahead and state your name. Unfortunately, I didn't ask you to do that before. State your name and and where you live and your business.
Ray Broadway, and we have the Spring Creek Marina and RV Park.
Is this a ticketed event?
Yes.
And so how will you control? You're only going to sell X number of tickets to the event? Is that an accurate statement? And what would be the maximum number of tickets?
3,000.
And so have you communicated with the police department on security matters?
We've talked to them in the past about security, but waiting for approval for this to see what they recommend for security. And then we'd go with those guidelines.
Okay. Is Chief Fincher here? There he is, back there. Chief, I have a couple of questions in that regard.
Yes, Billy.
May I ask a question before you leave? If you talk about up to 3,000 people, and even if you do 4 person per car, per vehicle, would there be adequate parking? You know, we're talking 500-600 cars, and the space that's designated for parking. Show me that on that map. Where will parking be?
It'd be all along in here and all in here, and down here if we need be. We're anticipating, because of the weekend, that we'll draw people already at the lake, which we get a lot of foot traffic now to the store. So it's inconceivable to think that they would just walk down to that as well and then go back to their camping afterwards, to help limit the amount of vehicles out there.
And do you have the parking spots marked off?
We will.
You will? So can any consideration be given to selling fewer than 3,000 tickets?
Yes.
Do I have other questions? If not, we'll have Tracy come. He's right behind you, Ray, so if you'll let him come forward. Ray, go ahead and stay up here, because I'm sure there'll be more questions. So,
Chief, have you by chance had an opportunity to go out there and look at the site?
Tracy Fincher, Assistant Chief of Police. Yes, I went out there yesterday and looked over the situation. I did. The parking will probably be sufficient if it doesn't rain.
And so I guess then that would be a question, Ray, if there's rain prior to the event, which would possibly render the Parking unusable, what would be the plan in that case?
The event in the rain, the concert's canceled anyway because it's outdoor and they can't have their equipment out there anyway.
Okay, okay. Chief, knowing that that is Easter weekend, I've never been out there on Easter weekend. Is that something that you have sufficient manpower?
It's a concern as we will be manning the lake, extra manpower for that weekend, and I can't guarantee that we can provide the 8 or 9 security officers that's going to be required to have this event. What we'll do is we'll put it on a sign-up sheet, and if we fill it, we fill it. If we don't, then we have issues there.
And in that case, would they have to then work with you and hire private security? Is that what would be the plan at that point if you don't have enough officers?
Yes, sir. We've done that for a couple of events. Y'all made that a part of the contract for the boat races, and it worked out real well, that we negotiate beforehand and determine X amount of PD officers with so much private security, and that tend to work out pretty good for the lake or for the boat races. We haven't really done it with very many other events, but it worked well for that.
I noticed too that this is BYOB. I am assuming that gives, from a security standpoint, that gives you pause for concern when it's BYOB.
The issues that arise from BYOB would be over intoxication, over consumption, and minors will be harder to control when you have BYOB.
And what about the traffic out there? That to me is as much concern. I know as a part of that meeting also, we had concerns that had been expressed. I think the mayor mentioned some. I had some when we were talking about that in November as a part of that plan development, that citizens were concerned about traffic out there. I assume, number one, you've already got a busy weekend, it sounds like, with Easter. I'm assuming then we've got additional concerns if we're adding, maybe it may not be a net 1,500 to 3,000 people, but there's going to be some net increase over and above what already at the lake. Is that something that your folks can handle on that weekend in terms of additional traffic?
That's a hard question to answer with not having a number of attendees. It will be a concern, and we'll have 5 to 9 working out there already. Not so sure we don't need some traffic control up on Knickerbocker, depending on how many tickets he sells. I would just ask that he be allowed to pay for that extra manpower as well, if we need it.
And Mr. Broadway, in your application, it was from 7 to 10 p.m. I see that as problematic. Would you be willing to do some different hours with the hard stop at an earlier time than 10 p.m.? That to me is problematic.
I guess, can I understand your concerns with that? What concerns do you have with that?
People that go to bed, people that we don't know their work schedule. We don't know, there's going to be, I would assume there's going to be maybe some citizens that might be older that may go to bed at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. And with the sound test, that the results that came, which were during the middle of the day, in the afternoon, if I'm not mistaken, I have concerns that 10 o'clock at night it would go that late.
We did 10 o'clock because the noise curfew out there, my understanding, is 10:30. And that's normally, that weekend, normally across the way and on our side, is usually extremely loud way into the mid early morning hours anyway, not from us, just from the city campers. And we did the 10 o'clock hard stop because it ended before the noise curfew. I'd like to add a little bit too about the sound test. I'm unaware of that email. The sound, the boats we had on the lake with meters, the entire shoreline around the property that we ran the boats, the meters wouldn't even pick up anything. The bass carried a little bit, and we run 4 extra bass speakers over a normal concert. Normally, it's broadcast 85 decibels. We did it at 120 to see how far it would cover. And even at 120 decibels, you could hear it, but the both style of meters, I forget what type they're called, but both style of meters wouldn't even read the noise. They wouldn't even pick it up as far as that volume goes.
Which is in direct conflict with what the.
Yeah, I've that email I've never seen.
Yeah. Again, it's in direct conflict with saying that they could hear it from any location, and at Mary Lee Beach, obviously, we're not in that perimeter that you outlined there. You know, I think we have some. My concerns are going to be the public safety and the citizens out there. And yet, at the same time, Mr. Broadway, you know, I know you're trying to make a business decision here. So that, you know, this conflicts me. I'm going to be straight up. This conflicts me. I'm going to go with this understanding that if and I want to hear from some of the council members too with any questions or concerns that y'all have, because some of y'all may have had calls. I don't know. I've not heard anything from the Lake Nasworthy homeowners folks, I'll say at this point. But if this were to come off, I would say there would be a hard stop at absolutely no later than 9 p.m. Absolutely no later than 9. My preference would be 8 p.m. Not having any idea when people go to bed. That then you would have to work with the police department on the security measures and follow what their suggestions would be with respect to security, and if it's additional security, work with them on who they would prefer you use as private security, and then work with the appropriate city staff. One thing that I can see as an issue is I'm going to call it orderly parking on that property. I'm assuming, Chief Fincher, if there is orderly parking done, then the in and out, ingress and egress for the parking would then be less problematic for your folks if it could be done orderly. So that may be something, Mr. Broadway, that you may have to have some additional paid folks if we're talking having orderly parking out there, but just allowing people to pull their car in there and then everybody starts parking every which way. Were you planning on having someone help you park vehicles out there?
Yes, parking and leaving. So make it orderly and everybody parks in a certain way and they leave in a certain way. So it's just not all one big.
Do you have the control to the access on that road there off of Fisherman's Road that goes, it's a pretty white line on the map there. Do you have control of that?
I have keys to the gates, yes.
To that, and were you planning on using that for this event, either in or out?
That's been brought up. I can. I mean, that's not an issue. We can put people out there to make sure that nobody stops here, which is the end of Sleepy Hollow, and they continue the way out.
Well, that would be something that, in my opinion, you need to work with Chief Fincher on in terms of the ingress and egress for that. Council, y'all have, I'm going to say, questions for me or other questions that I may not have yet asked of either Chief Fincher or Mr. Broadway?
Tom, do you have any questions or comments?
No, but
I'm following with what Councilman Hebert's saying as far as the time on that, the stop line, as far as what band are you getting? I mean, do you think you're gonna get 3,000 people?
Right now, the band's currently playing all over Texas, and they're drawing more than that at each venue.
Okay, so it looks like you may get that one.
Harry?
I'm going to support what Councilman Hebert's got to say, but I would say this is a Saturday evening, Saturday night. 8 o'clock is probably a little early for any place in San Angelo when it comes to a band. You know, the Blues Festival's downtown, it goes till 10:30, so I'm a little concerned from the standpoint that there's conflicting information when it comes to the sound resonating out there. And I think we need to have some clarification on that situation, regardless of whether or not we go forward with this, this particular date. But I will say also, we've got to figure out a way that we can get entertainment at the lake. It's got to be limited maybe, but we've got to figure that out because there is a lot of people that would like to have some outdoor concerts in this community, so.
Lucy?
I would just like to say that, I mean, I would want to support the event. I don't think 10 o'clock is horribly, you know, not too early, not too late. I think 10 o'clock would be about right because that's, like you said, at 10:30 was the ordinance for it to be shut down. 10 o'clock, and if you have someone that's going to direct the traffic out of the lake even, that's going to help a lot of the flow. I don't see anything wrong like you just said, Harry, we're wanting these kind of events to come to San Angelo, so I'm in support of it.
Lane?
The only concern that I would have would be for the traffic and getting out to make it safe and have our officers be able to handle the 3,000 folks out there. The time frame, I'm not too worried about it. I have to kind of look at it with all of our other districts. I've had fireworks going off at the stadium in District 5 past 10 o'clock, and I go to bed a little bit before that now, but then it kind of wakes me up. But with the with our noise ordinance in place, with a hard stop 30 minutes beforehand, I think that's a good compromise. If we have to compromise between 8 and 10, let's say 9 if we have to go that route. But I know we all have certain events in our districts that will conflict with the noise ordinance at some point.
Okay. Billy?
I pretty much agree with the statements that have been made, and I certainly respect this being in Tommy's district. I respect his comments and his concerns about the time limit, about the noise level. But I guess my take, and I was concerned about the parking, whether there was adequate parking. And I'm being assured that even up to 3,000 people, we would have adequate parking. And then the routing of the traffic, you know, it sounds like we would pay attention to that. The noise level seems to be the primary concern. And if the ordinance says 10:30 right now, if we force Mr. Broadway to stop at 9, what's to prevent some of the people that attend this going over to the park or whatever and turning up loud music? I mean, I just don't know that we could control all of that. So, you know, I don't know, Mr. Broadway, if you could consider ending at another time, but I just don't have any strong objection to 10 o'clock. So I would support this, that we have this event out there. I think it would be, you know, good for the city, good for our economic impact, things like that. But I don't want you, Tommy, to think that I'm trying to go against what you're saying, even though I'm doing that. But I just, you know, the mayor asked me how I felt about
My
it. So
fault
I think
now.
we need to move
I should have asked her to speak.
We're to 3-3. Bring me
I can. My memory works pretty good.
I know.
Well, I guess another comment, I guess, for Tommy is one thing you say you haven't been out there on Easter. There's many thousands of people out there. What they say last year was Over 20,000 people came out to the lake on that weekend. We're hoping that majority, if not all, will come from that crowd that's already there. I mean, there's already a lot of people out there. Yeah, there's going to be some cars in the parking, but with the many people that walk down to our facilities now, and even the 4th of July, that area down there fills up with foot traffic. I mean, all from way down here. They all walk around and come in. There's a lot of people that walk on foot down there. So a lot of them will be walking back out on foot on here, just like they come in, is what we're anticipating, is why we picked a holiday as well, is the traffic already out there is already heavy. But we're hoping to draw that crowd that's already out there for this concert as well.
I would say two things for me. Number one, I thought when we talked earlier on this whole project that we passed with the ordinance or resolution, whatever we passed, was that a stage was not going to be allowed out here. So I was very confused when I read this, because I thought that we'd already said we like what you're doing, but there can never be a stage.
A permanent stage. I had proposed to build a permanent stage, and that went away. The concerts coming in we have to do the portable stage, so it's gone.
Well, I was totally confused about that, and I don't remember the portable versus the permanent in that conversation, but that's my lack of memory.
Well,
So,
I will confirm what
Yeah.
Mr. Broadway said, based on watching that video. Yes, it was a permanent stage.
so thank
You're
you for
correct.
clarifying that for me.
Yes.
And then I would say on the noise thing, I could live with the 10. I'd rather have 9 or 9:30, but I can live with the 10 if we make it a hard 10, meaning if the bands start late, that doesn't mean you get to extend it later. So it's got to be start on time, end on time. Can't keep it
We've already
going.
discussed that with the band's management, and we told them 10 o'clock, power's off. It doesn't matter middle of a song or not, the power's off at 10, and they've agreed to that.
Okay. Do I have further questions or comments from council?
I would say, Mr. Broadway, if this goes the way you want it to go, this is not to be taken as a guarantee that the next event, this will go the same way. Because I would think any future events, this is going to be looked at very carefully. You're going to have to work with Chief Fincher, and I'm going to say follow what he says on security, on private security, on parking. If we end up having issues, because I'm going to ask for Carl and Chief Fincher to let us know what problems I'm sure I'm going to get some calls over this. I'm sure I will. So that will factor into it as well. So please don't take if this passes, please don't take this as a guarantee that the next event you want to hold, regardless of when it is something that is guaranteed to happen.
Pressure is on, I think is what he's saying.
Yeah.
With that, do we have a motion?
Let me make a motion, Mayor, because I want to put some things that, I guess we can do this, Teresa, in a special events permits. We can have some.
We're going to be bringing it back as a resolution that's going to be waiving some requirements, and we can address anything in that. So if you can give us direction on what you want to be in that
Okay.
resolution, that's going to be helpful.
You're asking for 10 o'clock. This goes against everything within my being to say 10 o'clock. But at this point, hard stop at 10 o'clock. And if it doesn't go well, I'm not sure you'll ever do another event out there. I'm just being as upfront with you as I possibly can.
I understand that completely.
Okay, all right, good. So you're on record as understanding that. So if this doesn't go well with noise and time, this is probably the only event.
And traffic.
Yeah, well, I'm not
Yeah.
through yet,
Oh,
Mayor.
pardon me. Got it.
I ain't through yet. So work with Chief Fincher. If something jumps the track in terms of security, in terms of noise, in terms of traffic, in terms of crowd control, Teresa, can we put something in there that Chief Fincher and PD has the ability to shut that event down?
We always have that ability to shut an event down. so
Okay,
yes.
all right. So
And
I want to
believe
make,
we put that in there in every one of those resolutions.
okay, so I want to make sure that if it's not even 10 o'clock, if we have issues that Chief Fincher is worried about public safety for whatever reason, that we got a hard shutdown at Chief Fincher's direction. One thing we haven't talked about yet is restrooms. Since you don't really know what your net increase would be over and above the crowd that's already at the lake, I'm going to ask you to work carefully with Carl and his folks on number of restrooms required out there. There may already be plenty because of the crowd that'll be there. If Carl and his staff say that there are enough, okay, but if they require more, you may need more restrooms. And, okay, I'll leave it at that in terms of direction, Teresa.
Chief Fincher requested that the payment for officers include traffic control. Do you want that also
Yes,
to be in
please.
the resolution?
Yes, Mr. Broadway, that's his expense, yes. Additional officers, additional private security, for whatever reason, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
that is the motion.
That is the motion,
I can't
ma'am.
repeat it.
Okay.
Because my memory's not that long. And so I'm going to take your motion as council understands it at this point. And so with that
I will
motion.
second that.
And a second with Tom. Any public comment?
Steve Hampton, District 6. What happened to the one that we had last year? What was the results? I haven't heard any results from that. You placed a bunch of rules on him also, and yet we had no feedback on what happened, how many calls you got, et cetera, et cetera. So
There was no concert at the lake.
No.
It's
It was
car
a different
show.
event.
Totally
The car
different
show.
event, totally different
It had
location.
music. It had music too, I remember.
It was in May. It was a different event.
Okay.
It wasn't this event.
So,
Different event, totally different music.
you
So-
forgot to put in lifeguard. You didn't, if anybody calls.
That's your responsibility, Steve.
All right, well, thank you.
Start working out.
You got to wear your Speedo.
Okay, with that, I have a motion and a second. Any further public comment? With none, we'll take a vote. All in favor of the motion as presented by Tom E. Hebert, we will say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? With none opposed, motion passes 7-0. We'll move on to item C, first reading and public hearing of ordinances approving one, case CP 20-01, an amendment to the City of San Angelo Comprehensive Plan, changing certain lands from the transitional and neighborhood future land uses to the neighborhood center future land use being 32.4 acres located between Lutheran Way, Sunset Drive, West Loop 306, Frontage Road, and near Foster Road. And two, case Z20-01, a rezoning from the low-rise multifamily zoning district to the neighborhood commercial zoning district located at 3536 Lutheran Way. John, you're on.
Thank you. John James, Director of Planning and Development Services. So this, as you mentioned, is two separate cases, but we'll talk about them all together. Comprehensive plan amendment and a rezoning, largely at the request of Trinity Lutheran Church, which is in this area, but as you'll see, the comp plan amendment includes a little bit larger area as well. This is the future land use and zoning. You can see in yellow here, the current facility is in the neighborhood classification, and it's also in the RM1 zoning classification. And so we're proposing to change the future land use from that yellow neighborhood to the neighborhood center, which is more of a small-scale commercial type designation, which we think fits what they are already doing on the property, and as well as some of the properties across the street.
Yes, Billy?
John, what are those properties going to be across the street?
I think those are already in existence, and I
Yes.
think we may have some pictures of what's across. So here are a couple of pictures of Trinity Lutheran itself. This is one of those commercial across on Sunset Drive, and then another one that's it's kind of a strip center commercial, which is already in existence across the street.
Really, they've
Yes,
been
Tommy?
there 15 years or so. Just very small, locally owned businesses there in that.
Is that
village.
also the Dollar General store location?
Well, it's actually, it's
Yeah.
not across Sunset, but
But
it's
it's-
across
right.
the adjacent street, Lutheran Way.
Yeah.
And I think we may have a picture of that as well. Yeah, so here's Lutheran Way, and you can see across. So if this is
Yeah.
standing at Trinity Lutheran looking across the street. This is one of the other commercials right there at the corner. Basically, if here's the Dollar General, I think this one is located just kind of catty-cornered across from Dollar General.
And what is that one on the left?
You know, actually, I'm not sure. It's
It's
some
a-
sort of office.
Small, I think maybe some type of medical office in
Yeah,
there
it's
right
medical.
now.
There are apartments directly east of Trinity Lutheran as well, and so it would pull in part of that into that neighborhood center. And then there's also some vacant, undeveloped land to the west. We did send out 67 notices, 0 in favor or in opposition. This was to the comp plan amendment. We also sent a separate notice for the rezoning, 17 notices in that case. Also, no responses received from that. So some of the reasons for the rezoning, the existing church, daycare, elementary are allowed on the site, but the church is expanding to include high school as well, or the school on the church facility. Under our zoning ordinance, that puts them into a different category, the high school, because of a number of things, parking and traffic that you don't see with middle schools and elementary schools. And so it requires a rezoning in order for them to expand into a high school. It also would continue to allow everything that's going on there now, but as I said, it would allow more to occur. It also, they want a little bit bigger sign than they would be allowed under the residential zoning. And since they are right there on the frontage road to the freeway, it makes sense to allow that. And rather than have them go through a special process for that, this rezoning would take care of that issue as well.
They own this land already.
That's right. They're already there operating, but they want to do some additional things on the property that wouldn't be allowed under the current zoning. I won't read all of this, but the rezoning is consistent with what's around the area. It is, as you saw, there's the Dollar General, there's the strip center, the medical office. That's all consistent with this neighborhood center designation, as well as the neighborhood commercial zoning designation. I didn't mention it is zoned for apartments now, which have not happened. And again, it's already a church, the facility's there. So it just makes sense on this site to rezone it to the commercial. Staff does recommend approval of both the comp plan amendment and the zoning change, and the Planning Commission voted to recommend approval of both of those by unanimous 6-0 vote at their January meeting. Be happy to answer any questions.
Do I have questions from council at this point? If not, then do I have a motion for approval?
Move approval, Mayor. as
Tommy
presented.
moves for approval. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Tom. Public comment? With none, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
None opposed, motion passes 7-0. And that includes 1 and 2, correct?
That is correct.
All right. We are now going to go into closed session, the executive session and the provision of Government Code Title V, Open Government Ethics, Subtitle A, Open Government, Chapter 551, Open Meetings, Subchapter D, Exceptions to Requirement that meetings be open under the following sections. A, 551.071, consultation with attorney regarding 1, the Ford Ranch, 2, West Texas Water Partnership, 3, water rights, and B, 551.087, business prospect economic development regarding 1, COSA DC Project 2020-W001. And I am going to say that we'll come back from executive session and announce anything there, but we will not do any of the following items, B, C, or D, on the agenda. 9B, C, or D will not be considered when we return. With that, we are adjourning at 9:40 a.m. for a closed session.
Those little Miles kids won't want to come back here again, huh?
Yes, I forgot to be able to say goodbye and see if they were impressed with us. made from closed session, so at this point, I will entertain a motion for
Move we
adjournment.
adjourn.
And a second by Lane. Any public comment on that issue? With none, we will take a vote. All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. We are adjourned.
Very good.
The Blood, Sweat, and Stairs is an excellent event in order to show remembrance and get a glimpse into what's going on. We have firefighters from every DoD branch here. We have Navy, Marines, we have Army, Air Force, all that are represented and giving it their all to do everything and give their blood, sweat, and basically tears while doing things like stair climbs.